Welcome to Scorched Earth and a brand new year, 2024. I hope you are well. This is going to be a collective reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on Circle. Over there you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost. But that's there, not Vimeo, just to make it clear. As well as hang out with a really extraordinary group of people. So if that sounds like something that might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that second link. Right, let's have a look, Gemini, and see what's going on with you, because December's reading was quite well, I had to take a run up at it, as you will know if you'd seen it. It's the third time lucky with that one. Anyway, tell me about January, please, for Gemini. Thank you. We have the Ten of Pentacles coming out in reverse to start with. Current energy for Gemini, please. Queen of Swords. It's coming towards Gemini, please. Thank you. Ace of Wands. Not really a surprise to see that ace down there. We've got the Nine of Cups at the bottom of the deck, which is very welcome indeed. Oh, can I just point out that I found my Tarot of the Abyss. I thought I'd left it at the UK Tarot Conference. After 2 months of thinking it was missing, I actually found it in a little tote bag in my library. So that's good. It's back. Whatever reason, it needed to take a breather for a couple of months. I do sort of smash it, to be fair, so I'm glad that it's back there anyway. So, no major arcana here. I'm not concerned about that in the slightest, because you had quite a big reading in December and there was an awful lot of major arcana. If I recall, it was something like 7 of the 9 cards or 8 of the 10 or something like that, at least anyway. There were a lot. It was all major arcana. There was a big turning point in the month of December. Now, where we're at is the process of integrating that into your day-to-day life. The minor arcana signifying the things that you do as, you know, responses to the energy of the major arcana cards, or indeed initiating something off the back of what you've learned from those big universal energies that have been at play in you. We start with the Ten of Pentacles in reverse. Now, it's funny how many times, particularly the Ten of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles, have been coming up in the last 4 weeks, I think. You know, between my clients over on Circle for personal readings and also in the collective readings, because I've been talking a lot about this duality of the tens, and as you're aware, we've got the Ten of Swords and the Ten of Wands, and these are given to be negative endings of a sword. And then we have the Ten of Pentacles and the Ten of Cups, and those are often given to have more of that quality of the happily ever after about them. But in fact, there are seeds of the other in each of the cards. So although the Ten of Wands and the Ten of Swords appear negative, there's always a clearing that goes with those, and so yeah, probably be characterized by a sense of relief when those endings happen, because they might be uncomfortable to navigate, but at least whatever that situation is that has been building has now peaked, and it's all about the recovery, and there's been a clearing and a cleansing that's gone along with that. I think the Ten of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles are actually tricky cards, and they're easier to fall down with than perhaps the other two tens. And it comes about by way of this idea that when we are striving for, or in fact we've even achieved, our happily ever after, the last thing that we want to do is allow it to go in favour of replacing it with the new, right? Because everything runs in cycles, in the tarot, in life, in everything, right? And although it may represent the epitome of your effort, or the epitome of your success, or the epitome of your achievements, we're never supposed to stay there. We're constantly building up and up and up and up. And you see it in the major arcana as well, running from the Fool to the World, right? There's no end point. It's always about climbing and climbing and climbing, getting back into, well, not back into, starting a new cycle, completing that new cycle again. And where people fall down is that when there is a natural conclusion that comes to something that has been characterised by the Ten of Pentacles or has been characterised by the Ten of Cups, then we go, nah. We get rigid, we get inflexible, we're like, no, I've put loads of effort into this, no, I want this to be the way that it is, I'm not prepared for it to change or shift or grow in any kind of way. That Ten of Pentacles in reverse represents instability, and it's instability in terms of what you have already built. Now, let's get some clarifiers out before I get too into this. About this Ten of Pentacles, thank you. We've got the Eight of Cups and we've got the Three of Wands. Tell me about the Queen of Swords. Oh, shit. Fucking. Ah, oh, right. We've got the Knight of Pentacles. Virgo energy. Tell me about the Knight of Swords, please. We have got Justice, more Virgo energy. Libra energy. And Taurus with the King of Pentacles. Tell me about the Ace of Wands, please. We have the Fool, indeed we do. We have the Eight of Pentacles and we have the Magician, right? That's good, that's clear. Page of Swords is at the bottom of this deck. So, instability doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, it needs to be a thing that occurs when you're trying to break free of something. You cannot take everything with you all of the time. I mean, I liken it sometimes, your life, your experience, everything. It's like a room. You have a room and you fill it with feelings, you fill it with perceptions, you fill it with sometimes expectations and things like that. There's a finite capacity to the room. And when you choose to carry a lot of emotional baggage and stuff like that, you get to a point where you're like, I can't fit anything new in this room because I'm keeping all of these things here. And so through things like personal work and shadow work and stuff like that, we end up clearing out the room of things, we'll find an old packet of biscuits, right, at the back of a set of boxes and stuff. Like, I use that example, actually. That's a really personal example. The last thing that my late husband handed to me before he died was a packet of biscuits. It was a packet of milk chocolate hobnobs. Actually, for those of you in the UK who know what they are. And I took them and I put them on the shelf. And within 12 hours of that, he was dead. And that packet of biscuits sat for nearly 6 weeks on the shelf. I had a big open shelving thing in my kitchen. I could not eat the biscuit. I would not give the children the biscuit. No, you can't touch those. I didn't touch them. They just sat there because it was the last thing that he had handed to me. It probably took me 2 months before I got to the point, and it might not have even been me. It might have been my sister who threw it out. Because of the associations that I had with that. So when I say you might find a half-eaten packet of biscuits down the back of a box, right? It's the emotional attachment to that thing that we're talking about. Now, did that packet of biscuits give me anything meaningful? Was it something that was supposed to stay in my hand till the end of time? No. At the point where it had to happen, it got thrown away. And you can think about your life in terms of that sort of room, right? So the room will be full of things that you have worked for, things that you have achieved, but it'll be full of lots of other things too. And until you start the process of clearing out the room, likely you've forgotten the relative value of a lot of the things that sit in there. So the cleaning the room is destabilizing what is the status quo. It could do with, it could have something to do with where you live. Ten of Pentacles often can represent houses and things like that. Because of the structure and the stability and all that kind of thing. It can talk to business and that sort of thing. But it's this underlying, it's the status quo. That's what I'm talking about. It's the status quo shifting. And we see from the clarifiers really clearly, you know, why this has to happen. 8 of Cups, 3 of Wands. We are clearing the deck. Whatever has been up until this point, whether it's represented by the particular kind of employment that you've had versus a desire to be self-employed, or, you know, the house that you've lived in versus what is going to be better for you long term, you know, even the place that you live and all that sort of stuff. I mean, even speak to family as well. You know, family relationships that have had a certain dynamic, even friendships that have had a certain dynamic for a certain amount of time. And you realise that the only thing that you have in common, the only thing that actually keeps you where you are, is that longevity of the connection. And in circumstances like that, we'd be like, do we actually have anything in common anymore? Or do, you know, when we meet, do we just go over, do we just reminisce over old times? You know, is the point of the connection shared history, is there something more important? Now, you've got to take this as it resonates to you and where it affects your life particularly. But this shaking loose, this instability that we're finding with the 10 of Pentacles is having you uproot what has previously been something that's felt like support, but actually is just the kind of complacent attitude towards the fact that it's been there and it's always been there, and hadn't really given any thought to it not being there. It's talking about really big structural changes to your life, Gemini. And this card here is in the position of recent past. So I would imagine that the pre-shocks of this one were certainly in play in December, if not actually taking place in December, because the 8 of Cups represents that emotional moving away from something, right? Emotionally moving away from a packet of fucking biscuits. I tell you, grief is a weird thing. Because, let me show you this here. If you're not familiar with the tarot, the 8 of Cups is a really interesting card, because we've got those 8 cups and they're stacked up, but they're very pointedly stacked. You know, your brain registers there's something wrong with the way that those are stacked, and there's the one missing here. The 8 of Cups represents that point where we realise that whatever emotional investment we have had in whatever has been structurally relevant for us up until this point, it's not getting anything from it in return. You know, there are other decks that I've got. The Wild Unknown is a good one for this, where it shows the glass is actually broken. It's like they cannot contain anymore what it is that they were built for, which is water, which is actually the true depiction of emotion in the tarot. It's not the cups. The cups are simply the vessels that hold the water. So what you've got going on here is a realization that emotionally you're not getting what you need from here. It's time to move on in some sort of way, and we definitely see that with the 3 of Wands. In pursuit of the 9th cup, that which the 9 of Cups is a wish card. Fuck me, I can't scare the fucking shit out of me. Go away, Yin. Fucking hell. Shout myself. For reference, it's actually darker out there than it looks on the camera, so I just saw a set of eyes and a mouth. That was scary. The 9 of Cups is sometimes referred to as the wish card. It represents your highest goals, hopes, dreams, aspirations, and all that kind of thing, right? It's actually quite closely attached to the star card in terms of its meanings in that way. But for me, the 9s represent management of whatever suit they're talking about. So in the 9 of Cups, we've got somebody who is actively managing their emotions, right? Which you have to do to realise that whatever situation you're in isn't really giving you what you need. I mean, sometimes the active management of emotions can be coming to the realisation that there are all sorts of things that you need emotionally in your life that you have not had. And something about where you have been is representing what has kept you trapped, right? It stopped you from growing, it stopped you expanding. And it's time to do both. I mean, the Page of Swords there talks to a kind of mental expansion that is occurring, where it's like lights are going on all over your mind. And you're like, why am I sat here doing this? I could be doing something else. There's always a cost, though. And the cost is, like I said, we're cleaning the room, right? You're going to have to get in there. You're going to have to do some, put in some effort. And you are going to have to make objective decisions about what stays and what goes. But while you do that, you really are clarifying your own internal position. Now, what I was saying about before about, potentially looking to move house, looking to change the nature of your employment, all that sort of stuff, we see that very closely embodied in the Three of Wands, because this is about the actions that you take. It's a low-level card of manifestation for me, because in the Two of Wands, we kind of, we've got hold of that which way do I go kind of energy. We call it the crossroads often. It's the awareness that there's a decision that needs to be made by us, not something that we need to be forced into, but it needs to voluntarily come from us. And then we sit with that internal contemplation of what are the consequences of going this way? What are the consequences of going that way? By the time you get to the Three of Wands, which is much more outward facing, it's where your actions start aligning with what is going on internally, right? The results of that decision-making process, but also, the emotional stuff that goes along with that. Where have the attachments been? What are you trying to pull away from? What are you striving towards? And I think that's what, the Nine of Cups is the shadow card. It is the underlying theme for the entire reading. This is getting about very, very clear about what it is that you want, and very, very clear about how you are prepared to clean house to get it. So then when we come into your current energy, we've got the Queen of Swords, Libra energy, just as the Justice card is there. And the Queen of Swords has also been another card that has been popping up an awful lot over the last 4 weeks. She's very helpful in helping you establish what is true and what is not, right? She's really good energy for sifting through things and looking at them objectively. Putting old, tired emotions to one side and going, well, what do I want? What does this give me? What does this not give me? What do I actually need? But the main thrust of the Queen of Swords for me has been very much about discernment. And as a corollary of that, there's certain situations that we all seem to be coming up against where they look very similar to something that we've done in the past, or something that's happened to us in the past, or some sort of knowledge or awareness that we got in the past. And we picked a particular route, and it took us down a road that didn't feel terribly comfortable, and we're like, oh shit, I've cocked up here, right? And there's had to be this big cleanup operation at the other end of it. And we come out of it, slightly tatty and whatnot, and we go, right, I'm never going to do that again. And then this same situation comes up. The obvious response would be, oh, fuck, that looks like something that I've done in the past. Remember how that went? I'm not going to do that anymore. But discernment says, is it the same, though? And by definition, it can't be. I want to make this really, really clear, because you are not the same person that you were the last time that this happened. So whether this is the way that you're trying to change up your life, whether this is some sort of big spiritual insight that you've got, some kind of big spiritual drive to do something, it doesn't really matter what the situation is. It's the fact that you recognize it, and it's enough to make you go, True discernment will say, I'm going to look at all the pieces of this. And it's not that I'm going to disregard my past experiences, but I'm not going to put as much weight on those past experiences as I will put faith in my ability to be able to discern what is the right step forward for me. And it's very present. It's happening in the moment. So you can take a step and go, how does it look? And then take another step and go, no, it all still looks good. And take another step too. And it's like, well, maybe there is where the branch goes off. There is where we do something slightly differently to the way that we would have done it before. But it's losing that kind of snap judgment. And Gemini, you're pretty good at that. In favour of, what do I understand entirely about this situation right now? What would my past emotional state have me moving towards, which is going to be like the polar opposite of where we were before? And how can I walk that middle road? Because this Justice card here, so we've got double Libra energy, and it's very much more the airy side of Libra than it is the Venusian side of Libra, right? It's processing information, but the Justice card always talks to me about karma, which is neutral. It is simply the consequences of our actions, and it suggests to me that you are much more thoughtful about the way that you're moving forwards than you ever have been before, right? You've always had all of that sparky mental energy, and there's always been that pursuit of new information. Right? If I just have a little bit more information, I'll be able to make my decision better. But it's always been very pingy, fizzy is how I often think about Gemini energy. There's something much more considered. And it isn't necessarily, in fact, I would say it's probably not at all, I need another piece of information to make my mind up about this. It's like, I have all of the information that I need now with everything that I know. What do I feel is the right way forwards? Because you notice we've got these slower energies of the Knight of Pentacles and the King of Pentacles here. It's Virgo and Taurus. These are pretty slow moving energies. And neither of them are the initiating energy of Earth. That would be Capricorn, and we don't have Capricorn on the table. We've got Virgo and we've got Taurus. So you're not initiating something new, you're working with, methodically, what you already have. Both, well, all earth energy stuff, all earth element stuff is interested in building, right? Creating good foundations. It's taking the long-term view. And I think rather than being very immediate, which Gemini is, right? Your card is the Knight of Swords, and it is the fastest moving card in the tarot. No doubt whatsoever. You know, Knight of Wands comes a close second, but it means it's speaking to the speed with which you can process information, right? But there's also that insatiable desire for a new piece of information that might be the thing that puts the light on in your head. Like, this is much slower. This is much more considered. Now, interestingly, we've got Mercury in retrograde during December. It's bobbing into, it's retrograding in Capricorn, bobbing back into Sagittarius, and then moving back forwards in Capricorn again, which is going to give all of us an opportunity to really sort through where we think we're going and make sure that it's in the right direction before it goes direct on the 1st. And once it goes direct on the 1st, obviously you've got 2 weeks post-shadow period for that energy to wind down. But it doesn't support like super rapid movement at that point. It's like, make sure that everything is as you think it is, right? Really pay attention to the foundations, because these are the things that are going to hold you up later. And a stitch in time saves 9. That's very much the energy of this here, because your actions have consequences, because you are a powerful being. And so with great power comes great responsibility. And this is true for everyone. And wherever any of you are going, I'm not sure you're entirely clear on the details yet. But for all of you, there's going to be a foundation that can be created over the course of December and certainly crossing into January that sets you up very well for the rest of the year, because you're taking the longer term view here. You're really committing to something here. We've got cards of commitment all over this. Knight of Pentacles, there's 8 of Pentacles over here too. So then we move into January. And January is all about you putting into action what it is that you're doing. It does not necessarily mean that whatever you've been thinking about and the ways that you're wanting to change your life will happen dead on the December the 1st. Far from it, because we've got these slower moving energies of making sure that you are taking into account what the consequences of each move are, and, you know, sifting it, making sure you truly understand it before you take the next step, before you make any major decisions. Because you've been clearing space here, and this is the space to actually consider it. And it has to be slow. A little bit slower than you would like, But at the same time, I actually don't feel the resistance to it being slow that I would usually feel with you, Gemini. It's not really there. Once we get into January and, big planetary transit, Pluto is moving into Aquarius on the 21st of January. So this is a big thing for everyone. We've got 9 months of of Pluto in Aquarius before it bobs back out into Capricorn for something like a month or 6 weeks or something like that, and then it's back in properly for 20 years. Now, I see these retrogrades into Capricorn as not only breaking down the old structures, but also giving us an opportunity to make sure that we're actually going in the right direction. We had a taste of Pluto in Aquarius earlier in 2023, sort of March when it went in. It was in for a few months. And it was like, what does the future hold for you? What could the future hold for you? Oh, Yin Salabim, what are you doing? There you go. Now, what systems do I have in place to make that happen? Like that, by definition, that's a slow process because there's a lot of internal dismantling and there's a lot of internal putting back together again. But January is all about initiation for you. So, sorry. Yin, get down. Thank you. So the question is, how does your behaviour need to change? And I say that, quite loosely. The things that you do, how does that need to change to facilitate this new life that you are creating for yourself? This absolute embrace of the new cycle. Now, I believe, if I remember rightly, the December reading for you was very much talking about your role as a healer, which is something that can happen in lots and lots of different ways. It isn't necessarily right, I'm going to hands-on heal people, right? There's a lot that can be encapsulated under that umbrella, really. Can't sit on boxes, obviously. Not least the healing of self, right? And the joy and the emotional fulfillment that comes from that process. Like I said, even if you don't know exactly where you're going, and I feel like some of you have actually really got quite a strong idea of where you're going, it doesn't really matter because it's the leaning into, it's the embracing, it's the taking the leap. Remember, the Fool card isn't just about a new cycle, although it is. It does speak about that directly. It speaks about development of faith and trust. The Fool doesn't know where he's going, but the important energies of the Fool is that he is willing to go. He's willing to explore. He's willing to go see what the world has for him. He's willing to throw himself into something entirely new, having destabilized what was structurally, at least he thought, was structurally sound for a while, because the capacity for growth and expansion. The Fool card contains all potential, all eventualities. It's really the only tarot card that really matters because all of the other tarot cards are in the Fool. Pure potential. Everything is possible. And we have the Eight of Pentacles, which is a card of commitment and working and mastery of things. And then you have the Magician, which is a Gemini card. Well, it's actually ruled by Mercury. Quiet. It's ruled by Mercury, so it covers you and it covers Virgo. But there's something inherently Gemini-like about abracadabra, right? I create as I speak. That seems to me to be a very Gemini proposition. So the question is, what have you been working on in December? And I don't mean necessarily with a pad of paper and a pen, creating a business plan or something like that. I mean, what parts of you have you been working on? What parts of life have you been looking at and going, do you know what? They can be so much fucking better than they are. I'm going to do something differently here. And how can you lean into that in the month of January? Because the energies of manifestation, active manifestation with the Magician card, as well as the energies of pure potential are sitting with you in January. And they are entirely contingent on, and I want to make this really clear, what you choose to do. Not what you choose to think, because I feel like that work has happened in January already. Not what you choose to feel, because you've already decided that you want to feel better. right? You want to feel more fulfilled. You want to feel more aligned. You want to feel more like you're managing your emotions. You know, could be even a work-life balance now. And it's what's the other one? Ace of Pentacles. We don't have the Ace of Pentacles, but then that sense of there being shush, something that you have already been working on, coming to the fore. It's like there's not a new initiation in terms of the idea or the amount of energy that you put into it, because we've already got that here. This is something that is already in motion. So you don't need that ace of a seed because it's already been planted. What you need to do is the acts, the behaviors, you know, whether this is if this is a solid, tangible thing, like setting up a new business, I'm going to put you in the fucking sea. Shush. Scorpios, I ask you. What was I even saying? Oh yeah, if it's a tangible thing, like setting up a business and all that sort of stuff, chances are you already have a vague idea of what that looks like. If it's moving house, you already have a vague idea about where it is that you want to move to, or the kind of house that you want to move to, or if you're even doing a bigger move than that, you know, the country that you want to move to, something like that. That's already been initiated. What we have in January are the actions that match what it is that you have mentally and emotionally initiated. This is where it starts. You know, the Ace of Pentacles is, the Ace of Wands rather, is associated with creativity and passion and drive, but because it's Wands, it's about what you do. It's about how your actions match everything else. So January is a month to start putting in legwork, right? It's even if it's something less tangible, even if it's something kind of ephemeral. Maybe you've sat down and thought, I would like to be more compassionate or more empathetic. I'd like to teach myself something, right? I'd like to pick up a new skill that I've had. Whatever mental obstructions have stopped you from doing that in the past, because we all have those. As you see them, it's like the acts of demonstration are really important. So if you want to be more of a particular kind of person, then you're going to put the energy into being that particular kind of person. I've mentioned this before. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but certainly mentioned it on the channel before. I won't bore you with the backstory of it, but there was a point where I came to the realization that I had not always been an introvert for my entire life, that my introversion actually was a trauma response, and naturally I was really quite extroverted when I thought back to my childhood. And every now and again I do these little experiments of like, okay, so what would an extrovert do in this situation? I'll be in the supermarket or something like that, and I really make an effort to talk, because I kind of wander along in my own fucking dream world, and I don't really see people sometimes, and it's like pulling me back here and going, no, you be present, be centered. What would an extrovert do right now? And do that thing. It's like trying it on, see how it fits, but there has to be a corresponding action that goes with it. I can't just go, all right, I'm an extrovert now in my head, and that be what it is. The actions need to match. That's just an example of it being a more ephemeral, less tangible kind of situation. But for most of you, I think it's something that you're actually working on, planning on, that is going to, you intend, for this to be a much bigger part of your life moving forwards, right? Something perhaps that you are known for moving forwards. It feels like a reinvention of self. Really, get in the bin. And so it's time to take it off the shelf of abstract. It's time to take it off the shelf of, examining it for meaning and stuff like that, and go, well, actually, if I'm going to be this person, if I'm going to work towards this dream, these are the actions that I need to take, and January is the month to do them. This is really interesting. I'm going to go over to the extended now. And I'm going to put my cat in the kitchen before I do that. So if you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. You can do that on Vimeo, or you can come over to the Circle platform. If you come over to Circle, you can see all of the extended content. So you can watch for your ascendant and your moon sign or somebody else. Like, it's entirely up to you, no judgment. But that's where all of those are. So if you would like to do that, you're very welcome to do so. If that's not something that is of interest to you, no shade at all. It's just like, I wanted to use the word explosive, but I'm not entirely sure that that's correct, because that sounds uncontrolled. And what I'm seeing in January is very controlled for you. It's very directed, it's very targeted, and it's like, I'm going to do this. Now, just get out there and fucking do it. Whatever it is, whatever kind of changes you're trying to initiate, January is all about setting those in motion. So wherever you feel yourself being pulled to initiate, even if that is in a complete reinvention of you, this is the time to do it. 100%. And I'm not usually one for pushing initiating stuff in January, because people usually just fizzle out by the third week. But that's not what I'm seeing here for you, Gemini. So yes, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.